Hey there, my name's Niandra and I want to give some tips for playing Mercy against each Hitscan DPS hero. So let's begin with Ashe and a general tip. At the beginning of each round and throughout, I look at the enemy team and ask myself, okay, what are they running, what do they punish, and how can I play around it to minimise their effect? In general as Mercy, I like to keep distance from my allies to avoid taking damage not even meant for me, and because it forces the enemy team to put more effort into keeping up. Ashe's dynamite will be one of the biggest punishers if I deviate away from this or start slacking with my positioning. For example, if my team is attacking Hanamura and I'm here, if Ryan goes for a fire strike, Ashe shield gets broken, or hell, if Ashe just bounces off the wall behind him, I'm an easy target, but if I stand to the side here, dynamite probably won't hit me. Plus, I have the allies that did get set on fire in my camera view for easy heal flicking. If dynamite is a consistent issue for your team, it's probably because your allies are too bunched together, which Mercy is great at noticing when she plays from the back. In cases like this, tell your team to spread out a bit more and consider suggesting Zarya or D.Va to bubble and eat it. If you are hit by dynamite, Valkyrie's constantly active health regeneration will cancel out the afterburn as they heal and damage for 20 per second respectively. Trusting your second healer is a really important skill to learn, plus you should be aware of health packs, but if it's already a good time to use Valkyrie, say you've gotten a pick or you're initiating a fight, then it can be valid to ult for the health, especially if Ana's busy with something else. That being said, it is so crucial to be aware of overall health and what's going on around you while doing this. You really need to be tracking Ashe's positioning because while burning from full, 2 body shots will be enough to kill you. Last of all, listen out for Coach Gun because it will indicate where she is. For example here, we just heard it to our left and there's high ground left, that's valuable for a sniper, so let's quickly shift our position to be safe. Next, Tracer. Surviving against her is largely about taking advantage of the fact that you have vertical mobility while she doesn't. When I see the enemy team has a Tracer, I make a conscious effort to play from high ground when possible. I'll flip my camera view to areas she might come from and listen for footsteps or blinks to get a head start on repositioning. Super jumping frequently can be effective against Tracer, but unless I know she's looking for a pulse bomb, I generally look for allies close so I spend little time GAing and Asuna in the air. With her recent range buff, she can get you relatively well if you hover above the team with Angelic Descent, so again, preferably use super jump for high ground or for throwing her aim off. Ultimately, Mercy can do her job while under attack, while it's Tracer's job to attack, so staying alive will provide more value than it normally does. And I know that sounds like a forehead thing to say, but just wasting her time is really useful. If Tracer targets another ally, I sometimes like to body block for them as long as she isn't completely in their face. A lot of Tracer players have this predictable movement pattern of blinking through someone and turning around to shoot, which I try to mirror. As is the case with any sort of Mercy body block, which is a thing by the way, it's crucial to be aware of your own health and allies nearby for an escape fly path when the damage gets too heavy. Last of all, please stand still when stuck with Pulse Bomb and cancel Guardian Angel unless you're heading away from allies. Please, I beg you, please. Next, McCree, and every Mercy resource will be quick to say, hey, be careful about valking openly against heroes like McCree, Soldier, Widow and so on. Sure, but with McCree, we also want to be careful about flying too low due to its flashbang. What I love to do is take advantage of Valkyrie doubling the length of my initial beam and playing from high but far, often using the upper map geometry for cover. I try to find narrow angles that give me a good view on my team so I know everyone's getting beamed, but limits enemies being able to get to me. Basically, the goal is to position myself in a way that I don't care if McCree uses High Noon halfway through my ult because I already accounted for it after activating Valkyrie. Outside of my ult, I want to keep distance while pocketing allies attacking him so we can't both be hit by his flashbang, and just be aware of his general positioning while choosing Guardian Angel targets. If I have to go near him to reach my destination, I might get stunned out of flight unless I already saw him use it. In my Mercy tank pairing guide, I emphasise the importance of using natural terrain and corners for cover over ally shields. High Noon is one of the reasons why, because it does more damage to a shield the more people that are behind it as the barrier tanks the bullet instead. This makes it really not that safe or reliable. McCree shoots from his right to left, so if you're opposite, you're left to right. If you have to play behind your Ryan, I try to stick to this side. If you're hiding while McCree activates High Noon, try to track the 6-second duration in your head because if he just lets the timer run out, there's no voice line. As Mercy, I generally try to avoid staying in the same position for long periods of time, but I've been forced into it because I couldn't tell if High Noon was over. This then makes it easy for people like Roadhog to pick me off because my beam is a bright blue arrow that shows where I'm playing from. There also isn't an audio cue for when he cancels it early, so listen out for things like shots, roll, or flashbang, which will let you know when it's over. Last of all, McCree can throw his flashbang over a Rein shield to stun him, and while he doesn't have a big window afterwards to damage you, I'd still be cautious and consider backing off on Rein if I saw McCree approaching. From experience, a lot of them seem to then fan the hammer our Reinhardt afterwards, so watch him carefully for a quick healing flick. Next, Reaper, and against this not particularly mobile flanker, you really want to push Mercy's ability to do her job while looking in any direction she wants. Reaper's damage is really crappy at range, so if you can spot him creeping up on your team and call him out early, it can really minimise his potential impact. When Reaper does get close, keep back and watch for his Wraith ability so you can focus damage boost on those attacking him once it finishes. In this matchup, my favourite blue beam targets are allies with range and or CC like Pharah and McCree. Personally, I find it pretty obvious when a Reaper has ult. They'll favour high ground near your team, Wraith in the middle of allies, and just generally play more aggressive than they have been. During Death Blossom, be careful about relying on barriers and instead use them as cover while you fall back to allies behind. This is because, like High Noon, Death Blossom does more damage the more people that are behind the barrier, so it's not as safe as you'd think. One really niche tip, and something you should be doing anyway, is keeping your Ana topped up and peeled for so she can use her nades aggressively, in this case to disable Reaper's lifesteal instead of saving them to heal herself. You don't have to pocket her, and I generally try to keep my distance from Ana, but I'll make sure to keep track of her positioning by flicking my camera view about. Next, Soldier. Against him, it's pretty much the same advice as McCree, just keep more of an eye out for high ground based flanks. If you're desperate for cover during Tactical Visor, hiding behind allies can throw the tracker off. Obviously, the best targets are tanks like Roadhog, who are large in both size and health pool, because Mercy cannot out-heal Tactical Visor, and if you hide behind Ana, you will likely kill her. Next, Bastien. His deal is trading mobility for extremely high damage, so it's crucial to always be aware of his position, if he's moving, and to abuse Mercy's ability to play from peeking behind terrain. When repositioning yourself, it's really important to have cover in mind while doing so. Bastien compositions revolve around snowballing and keeping momentum going, meaning it's going to be crucial for you to realise if your team is staggering and call for a proper regroup. If the team is struggling to eliminate Bastien, an unconventional but pretty consistent method of killing him can be damage boosting your Tracer's Pulse Bomb. This combo will kill a turret from Bastien from full even if he pre-heals through it. Also, Mercy's beam stays on allies that move out of range or sight for 1.4 seconds before breaking. This applies to Tracer blinks and means you can often do the combo while remaining in a relatively safe backed off position as long as she's quick enough. Besides that though, you generally want to damage boost allies that already do high or burst damage to lessen the time to kill, or allies with extremely impactful ultimates so they get them quicker and win the fight that way. Once your team wins a fight against Bastien, it can be worth pushing up a little bit further than normal to prevent them from resetting up. Either way, I now want to heavily use damage boost on allies attacking shields or Bastien himself so he can't stay planted in one spot anymore. In general, I try to check the scoreboard after my team wins a fight since enemies are more likely to use this downtime to change heroes, especially with a Bastien if he's no longer working, and I want a head start on playing around the new pick. Oh, Bastien just went Tracer? Okay, let's head to high ground before she can blink out of spawn. Next, Sombra, and hack attempts can be broken by leaving her line of sight. This can be done by shield dancing, which is the act of walking through your own barrier, or more safely, peeking from corners thanks to Mercy's ability to briefly maintain a beam connection while out of view. It's pretty niche, but I have had success by playing near our top turret if it's generally in the back because any amount of damage also interrupts hack. The turret can be useful as an indicator that someone like Sombra is flanking if it locks onto someone that's to my side. As mentioned earlier, I generally keep distance from my teammates, and this is especially the case when I suspect Sombra has EMP. I mainly focus on staying away from our other support to make sure we both can't be hit by it, and if I do see my team playing close together, I'll tell them over voice chat that they're playing into it. Remember that EMP will remove the shield part of an ally's health, so those teammates will often be your immediate priority, especially the squishies like Niandra, whose hitbox makes him an especially easy target. I always recommend taking the pistol out when you have no beam targets, and this especially applies to after you respawn on the off chance that you're spawn camped. If you do get hacked while completely isolated, ask your team for help and make sure the pistol comes out. Strafe, crouch spam, just make yourself hard to hit while shooting back to try to force Sombra to recoil from the damage or until hack wears off, in which case you might just be able to fly away. Even if you die to her, you might gain some chips of ult charge from the pistol shots, which beats dying defenselessly. When Sombra teleports back to her translocator, you can briefly see the direction she's going, and if for some reason that ends up being behind you, tell your team and consider adjusting your position. And last of all, Widow. As I said in my common Mercy mistakes video, going after her with the pistol and Valkyrie can absolutely be a valid play, but do not tunnel vision and let your team die for it. Generally, if I miss the first few shots, I'll abandon the play and go back to my teammates because 15 seconds of mass damage boost is probably worth more than 15 seconds for a single kill on Widow. Unless my team is just like monumentally struggling against her, I recommend crouch spamming and jumping during Valkyrie to create wavy movement that makes your head harder to track. Also, try to approach her from cover, the side, or via guiding angel targets instead of directly heading towards her so you don't get capped. Keep in mind, you don't have to kill Widow to be effective, just a couple shots that distract her can be pretty useful. In the past, I've seen a lot of clips on like Reddit or wherever where Mercy gets a bunch of kills, then goes for a res, and it looks great as montage material, but then you realise, if she had been beaming her allies instead, she would have noticed when that now dead ally had gotten low, switched to healing, and potentially saved res for later. This is the sort of thing you need to keep in mind. You really need to be careful with reses against Widow because she can easily punish the ones where you don't use cover or twist yourself around corners. If an ally is killed by Widow, ask yourself, where is she? Because if she had sight on McCree when she killed him, she likely has it on the corpse unless it was a grapple shot or you spot your team distracting her. If you revive McCree, what are the odds that Widow just caps him again before he can get into cover? If possible, res him and give him instructions to immediately move in a certain direction once the animation finishes. As mentioned in the past, looking at the floor can hide your head hitbox behind wings, but ultimately this isn't something I would consistently rely on. Widow's ultimate lasts 15 seconds, and if you're good with maths, try to calculate the time it finishes by flicking your eyes up to the round timer and taking 15 away from it. Call it out, prioritise cover in the meantime, and tell your team when it's over. And that's all from me this time, but sometime in future we'll look at the projectile heroes. Thank you so much for watching, feel free to check out my Patreon, and have a nice day.